I think we'll start. So you found your way to Asked and Answered. Thank you for being here. Our intention here is to step you through some of the strategic planning that the board has been doing in specific response to a question that was asked at our last convention. A very appropriate and serious question. And I was glad it was asked because it's led to some really good work. So Amy's going to drive the slides. Thank you, Amy. And we will step through this. And we'll have lots of time for questions, anything you don't understand. I have, and I'll explain more, but Valley is here because she has been a participant in this process on behalf of all of you. And I'm going to explain what we've done, where we've landed, and answer any questions that you may have about it. So thank you for being here. Are you okay over there? You can see that screen, so you're good. Okay, excellent. Thank you. So Amy, jump to the first slide, please. Yes, ma'am. They absolutely can be available. Yep, we can make them available. I think that will be helpful. Okay, so I'm going to first start. I'm hoping I'm not going to fall off the stage here. I'm going to first start by, Amy, let's have the first slide, by talking about the process and really the story that I want to tell you. It's not moving ahead. She froze it. Ah, there we go. Okay. So let me tell you how this all unfolded. How many of you were at the 2025 convention? Great. Okay. So you remember the resolution that was asked. At the 2025, just to give you context, that was the convention at which we passed the biennial budget. And in that biennial budget, there was an unallocated line of dollars. And those dollars were the per member payments that were expected that were going to be coming. And the previous board really made a conservative and reasonable assumption that said, we're not quite sure how this is going to play out, right? We're moving to a new due structure. We don't know if we're going to get that money. We don't know how local leagues are going to do. And so they basically put those dollars on a suspension line and said, let's see what happens. And the membership said, appropriately, we're not comfortable with that. We'd like to know what you are going to do with those dollars. So I will tell you that began a process then for us at the state board to answer that question. It was an absolutely fair question. So here's how the work unfolded. After that convention, the board held a retreat. The new incoming board held an all-day retreat. And one of the things that we did at that retreat was ask some questions and do some real work on building our strategic priorities for this coming biennium. What were we going to focus on? And I want to acknowledge we have board members here in the room, and so they can certainly add to anything that I say. Karen Madsen is here, who is our LWVWA Education Fund board member. Well, Marlene, you're new, so you weren't there. Do I see any other board members in the room? No, okay, that's fine. So we held an all-day retreat, and from that retreat, and I will get to that next, we did build a series of 5 strategic priorities that were going to guide our work, really a focus for the next couple of years. And I'm going to show you that in a minute, but let me tell the story first of how this unfolded. After that set of priorities, we convened what we called a strategic task force, an ad hoc task force. And I will show you those members, but I'm going to tell you the story first. And the goal from that was to really ask the question of local leagues, what do you value about what we're doing? What's missing? We really didn't want to be answering a question about how we spent those suspended dollars until we did some inquiry from all of you. So we planned and executed. We pulled together a team. I'll tell you about that in a second. We sent out a local league survey. How many of you helped to participate in that local league survey? Right? So you saw the questions, and we gathered that information back. We had wonderful participation. And then from those survey results, the ad hoc team came together and took those results and turned them into an executive summary and a report for the board of directors. So the board of directors then looked at what you told us, and from that, looked at our strategic priorities and began to develop a set of tactics that said, okay, based on what we've heard and where we're going, what does that mean for us? What do we need to do? And the board took some time. First of all, that survey, the deployment, the creation, the deployment, the pulling back of information took us some time, obviously. We convened the team in September of last year. We took a couple of months to develop the survey. We sent the survey out. We got the results back. And then it took time to consolidate all that information. So that information was presented to the board in February of this year. And then the board began having strategic discussions about, okay, what does that mean? How are we going to turn this into a tactical plan that is responsive to all of you and build state capacity? So the board had some good discussions. We called a special meeting. We worked on the issue in the tactical plan. And in April, this is June, right? So just in April, then the board voted on where we were going to move forward. And the intention was to be able to come to you a year later, right, at council and say, you asked us a year ago, so now we're going to answer it and tell you what we came to. So I wanted to let you know that we were our intention was to be grounded and responsive to what you asked of us, and to make sure if we're making decisions, we weren't making them in a vacuum. So that's the story. That was the process. Now what we want to do is go into really much more specific detail about each of those areas and what we saw and where we're going. So any questions about that progression? You see it? Okay, great. So let's put up next slide, Amy, which is these are the 5 strategic priorities that the board landed on at our retreat last July. And we've shared these with you, but I think it's important to see it in context. There is a progression here as we move through it. And you see the 5 of them, but I do want to go over them with you. The first one was to strengthen operational infrastructure, and the subtext of that was to review our staffing and technology needs and commit to adding capacity to grow league impact statewide. That wasn't a trivial statement to make. I mean, the board was saying, let's look at where we are, let's look at what we need in response to all of you, and let's see what we're going to do about it. Based on where we are right now, where are we going to get to? And then strategic priority 2 flows from that, which says, okay, if you're going to add resources and staffing, how are you going to grow the money to do it? Where's that going to come from? So we said we need new financial resources have to be generated to support both our own infrastructure and our services out to local leagues. Those two go hand in hand, right? We talked about then also focusing on membership and leadership development. As you are all experiencing, how many of you had a growth in members? Yeah, really, it's 650, 700 new members at the state level, since last February. It's huge. We now have 3,000, Amy, 3,050 members, I think. Has it grown past that at this point? No, it's okay. If you have a chance to look it up. Anyway, it's over 3,000 members at this point. We haven't been that large in quite some time. And you're feeling that. So we know then that how can we, a priority for the board was saying, we're aware of that. How can we build the tools to not so much recruit at this point, but engage and retain all those new members that are coming to us. And to build future league leaders at all levels, right? So you don't have to be president forever. Let's have our next set of leaders coming. So, important strategic priority. And then we took a look at our communications, internal and external, and really started asking the question of how do we do that better, right? The subtext is important here. Tell a clear, powerful, ongoing story of effective civic engagement, education, and advocacy, both to league members and residents across Washington state. That's a pretty hefty piece. I want to say our comms team folks are here, and boy, have they been working on that. And then finally, increase statewide community outreach and engagement. And you've heard some of that work here at Council. Build deep, true, sustainable partnerships with democracy allies across Washington state. So we knew we had to focus not only internally, but we had to focus externally and build our muscle to be able to do that. So that's what the board said would be our focus. And then we turned to all of you and said, what do you want from us, right? You tell us. Now we need to hear from you. So next slide. Oh, it's there. Thank you. So that retreat was in July, and we said, great, we are going to build a task force to work on those first two priorities, operational infrastructure and financial resources. So we convened a task force. Valley is sitting up here because she was on that task force. We said we want 3 board members and 3 local league leaders. And we pulled them together. We developed a task force. And then this group created the survey that went out to all of you. And I'm really happy. At that time, 19 out of 20 leagues responded. So, and actually, that 20th league that did not respond has since dissolved. It happens. It was a Cowlitz League that just, they're no longer here, but Grays Harbor is going to be. So let me show you who's on the team. Team members, Amy, next slide. So here's who was on that team. I'm a great believer in putting on working groups the folks that ask the questions. Seriously. So Robin Barker from Bellingham, Whatcom County, Sasha Bentley, who was a board member, was on the task force, myself, Valley was on the task force representing Thurston County, and Barb Tencio, I don't think Barb's in the room, she was going to another, one of the other workshops. Barb Tencio from Seattle King County, and board member Toyoko Sakuda from Clallam County. So we said, let's get enough voices in here. And we deployed the survey, we created, that was work. We had some good discussion. You want to comment on that, on any of the survey development, Valley, or anything we did?
Developing surveys is actually very difficult, turns out, because you really have to think about your wording, because you want to make sure that the answers you're getting are what you need to know, and it's very easy to like not communicate that well in words. Wow, that was very eloquent. In written form, when you don't have like the nonverbal communication. And I will say that Amy did so much for this task force, including creating the actual survey and sending it out. And so we're very thankful for Amy. She is not, I don't think she was on that list. Amy was very much.
Yeah, Amy is an ad hoc member of everything we do.
Correct, yes. But no, it was really interesting to create the survey, I think, to really, because we kind of went back and forth between like what, because we kept getting confused about when did the task force stop and the board take over.
That is right.
So like, and we kept being like, well, is it the task force job to like make this recommendation to the board, or is it the task force's job to do a little bit more research and then give it? And so it was really hard to figure out where that line should be, but I think we finally managed it.
I think we did, and I should say in the end, you saw there were 2 strategic priorities. In the end, the task force says, you know, we don't think it's our job to tell the state league where you're going to find the money. We think it's our job to tell you, here's what we think we need. And board, you need to figure this out. That was okay. That was okay. And we really, the survey focus, there was 2 sets of questions. The first set is, what are we already providing, and is that of value to you? And a subset of that question was, do you even know that the state board is doing that? So you saw on the survey the question that said, and now that you know about it, is this something you might use? So we asked that. And then the second half of the survey was, what are we not doing that you really think we should be doing? So really, we were gathering that information. And from that, we created an executive summary. And so now what I want to go into is show you what the key findings were, really top level. And then I'm going to go into the tactical recommendations and how they're now playing out. So Amy, next slide. Okay. So this is very high level of what we gleaned from the survey. By the way, I didn't make copies of it, but if any of you want to look at it, we actually have the copy of the survey and all of your responses. So, and we have that, and that's available on the website, and we could share that with you if you actually want to see that. But these are the top-level findings. First, that our advocacy role of defending democracy and the Treasurers Affinity Group. It was interesting to look what rose to the top. Right to the top said, thank you for defending democracy, and by the way, we love the Treasurers Affinity Group. So thank you for telling us that. We love the Treasurers Affinity Group too. And I should say thank you to Karen, who has been co-leading that group. The second high level was, local leagues need some services that aren't supported or offered by the league. So what are you going to do about that? That's great. That's what we wanted to learn. And then this third learning was, we just see there's a lot of services that exist and we aren't aware of them or actually don't have the tools to use them effectively. That's a good learning for us. Just because you put it on the website doesn't mean you're going to find it, right? This fourth bullet was really key, that there was a call, a cry for additional training and technical support across a number of areas. Can't you help with this at the state level? The other thing that rose to the top was saying, please don't make us reinvent the wheel. Can't you give us a great repository of clear sample policies and guidelines so we didn't have to write them all up? We know they're out there. Can you just create that for us? And in the end, that information on the website should be easier to access and navigate. That's a surprise. Yeah. So next slide. So I want to show you, and so this boiled down to in the executive summary that really we should be thinking about the State League as an infrastructure builder. And those are key words. That's very different from just kind of tossing out services or facilitating things, that we should be building, helping you all to build infrastructure. And I want to say at this point, this is actually what the National League said they intended to do when they changed the dues structure. Because what they did, now they didn't change, I know this is hard to, because I know this hasn't played out for everyone, but the truth is they kept the amount of dues going to local leagues at the same percentage point. There was no percentage change to the dues going to local leagues. I understand there's nuance in that because all of your extra giving you were doing at the local level, and I understand that. But in terms of the percentage that you're getting, local league percentage didn't change. National said, we're going to take less, and we're going to give more money to state leagues because we know across the country that the state league organizations are under-resourced. So it's interesting. That was the intention in one of the main intentions in this whole change of due structures. There were many intentions. But they were looking at state leagues saying, we know you need more, we're going to give you more. And that means we should be building infrastructure. It's the role that we should be taking. You also told us, this is very loud and clear, asked us, how can you help us reduce cost, risk, and administrative burden for local leagues? How can you do that? Where can that happen? And then the third, can you help us, again, high level, can you help us build durable leadership? That's a great word, isn't it? Durable leadership, so that we have continuity. Can you help us with communications and advocacy capacity? So these were the top, sort of, if you boiled it down, those are the chunks, the big chunks. And then you actually recommended 6 action items, and that's the next slide. Let me tell you. So 6 areas that we were asked to focus on that you told us. And I'm going to go into each of these in greater detail, but let me first tell you what they are. The first was bulk purchases and financial support. The second area was technical tools and support you needed help with. The third, and this was huge, was training. The fourth was, again, efficient and effective communication. You're seeing themes here, right? But they play out, we get more and more specific. The fifth was a policy and resource library. And the sixth was a recommendation that we do some really looking at the current, at our overall services and how that might change. So there were 6 areas. And what I want to do now is I'm going to break down each of those 6 areas for you. We're going into great detail. All of this is available. If you want it, we can make it available to you. I don't know how much detail you want to go into, but I want to, as you're hearing, we kept breaking this down and then working it step by step and then figuring out where do we go. These details that I'm giving you now were reported to the board at the meeting in February of this year. So what I'm going to show you now is each one of those recommended actions. On the left-hand side were the specifics about what you asked us for. And on the right-hand side are the pieces that we are now putting into place. And I think the caveat here is there are certainly some things that are going to be longer term that we can't get to right away. But this is what we are doing and that the board decided to do now. So let me go through this with you. And you see it here, but I do want to go through it in detail. One of your top pieces that literally you were yelling at us, and it was appropriate. You were saying, can you help with D&O insurance, directors and officers insurance? What can you do with that? That's an expense that we all have. Isn't there something you can do at the state level? You also asked for some help with product licenses, Canva and Zoom. Can you do anything with that? And website creation and software tools. What can you help us with at the state level? And then you wanted stuff. You wanted buttons and stickers and outreach materials made available to you. And you wanted help attending state and national conventions. So under this area, bulk purchases and financial support, that's what rose to the top. So on the right-hand side is what we are now doing. And the first is that the state, some of you heard this, maybe not all of you, the state will now start to reimburse a portion, half of your directors and officers insurance, up to a maximum of $300 per league. And you can ask us for that right now, going back to fiscal year 2025, the fiscal year we just finished. You can actually send us the receipt for your directors and officers insurance, and we will cut you a check for up to $300 maximum for that. And that will happen going forward, we say, for the next 4 years, and it'll be up to the next board to consider that, but we're able to do that. The other thing that we can do at the state level, we researched this, we can't pool all of you because every single one of your boards is a separate entity that has to be insured separately. So we can't just say, you're all under our wings. But we do have, and Karen and our incoming treasurer, Cheryl, can give you information about the insurance carrier that we're working with who has said, let us know if you are looking to change carriers, let us know you're with the league, we're going to see what we can do. The cost of your directors and officers insurance is dependent upon all kinds of things. How large your league is, the number of directors you have. I mean, they have to look at your budget. All of that is involved, and so you have to apply individually.
So I know that we have a lot of new members here, so I do want to explain something about local leagues' relationship with the state league and the reason why the state was not able to just do an umbrella D&O insurance for all of us. So when the league was created in 1920, they were very deliberate about the structure. So you may hear about some organizations that have chapters. We're not chapters of the state or national league. Chapters has a very specific legal definition. Instead, we're federations, which means that each one of our leagues has more autonomy than what we would as a chapter. So we are all our own separate legal entities, which is why the state was not able to do bulk insurance for us. So hopefully that makes sense to you.
And the last thing I will say, by the way, is it is critical that you all have directors and officers insurance. It protects your board of directors. And it will help you bring people onto your board for them to know that you have D&O insurance. So I want to be sure you're doing that. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is the state league will now, if you want us to, we will provide a Zoom license for you. So for local leagues that are paying for your own Zoom license at this point, we now can, every single one of you can have a Zoom license using the state Zoom. You contact Amy, she sets it up. It's really no different than what you're doing now. You just have a different way of getting to it, right, Amy? It's pretty simple. It's not even that. She's going to jump in here.
There's 7 local leagues already that are doing this, and basically it's just a different login that you would use, but beyond that you shouldn't notice any other difference. You wouldn't have to talk to me about permission for anything once we get you set up. It should just feel like a completely autonomous Zoom account. It's just that you're getting it through our umbrella account, which enables us to get a 50% discount
Yeah,
on the cost.
we can get it at a lower price. So
And
it's
then
good for everybody. So
you- there is also Canva for each local league through the state, correct?
Yes, we have access to, I believe, 50 free pro level Canva licenses. I think we've used up about 32 of them already. And Carolyn and I are working on that. And just as an FYI, I highly recommend that you come up with a generic league email account, like, info@lwvwa.org, so that anybody who is doing graphic design for your league can log in with that into Canva and will have access to all of the old designs that have been made, any of the things that have been uploaded. You'll also have access to any templates that we have created that you can then use to tailor to your own league.
And how many of you were, any of you at the Canva training that we just did? So how'd that go? I didn't go in there. Oh, so much to learn. Ain't that the truth? That's great. Polly?
No, that just means that there's 32 local league members who are already using it. Well, actually 31, because Carolyn and I are sharing one at the state level. And if your league doesn't have one yet, get in touch. A lot of the local leagues have been using people's local members' personal emails. And so hopefully eventually we can transition away from the personal emails into a generic statewide email so that we're not going through those licenses as quickly as we are now.
So every one of you should be able to log on to that account. Amy. Yep, Amy.
We do need to have people use a microphone so the Zoom folks can hear us.
Oh, yeah. So Zoom folks, you would contact Amy. The question was, how do we get that license if we need it? And is there going to be a license for every league? And the answer is yes, every league should be able to access Canva. Brenda?
Who was our microphone farrier? Can we?
Marlene, here she comes.
That's just so the Zoom folks can hear us. Otherwise,
thank you
they
for the
can't hear
reminder.
anything. Oh, there's a button.
Amy Peloff, it is APELOFF at LWVWA.org. Peloff at LWVWA.org. Brenda?
Okay, this goes back to Zoom, and if we go with the state, do we have to go through Amy and Carolyn to schedule the Zoom?
No, it basically is your own account. So you'll work with Amy. You'll just be able to go right on and schedule.
And-
It's yours to use.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
you.
You don't have to do I would need a meeting. You manage it yourself.
If I could just add, so National highly recommends that leagues stop using personal email addresses. There's a lot of liability involved if you're like for data retention and stuff like that. So National highly suggests that like anything, like any accounts or anything that's being used is created under a league address and not under personal addresses.
So you could create a Snohomish Gmail account. You could create, but we really highly recommend that you do that. Honestly, we could be sued. And if you're using your personal email, that is all discoverable. So if that should frighten you a bit. So you might want to create a series of accounts. Certainly if you've got a communications account maybe, or a treasurer's account or a president's account, but think about doing that.
So for an example, in Thurston County, we had a candidate, I'm also in charge of our candidate forums, and we had a candidate last year who claimed that he was not going to participate in our candidates because we had rescheduled a previous forum without talking to him and without consulting him, and it was our fault that he lost his election. And thankfully, the person who ran the forums before me keeps all of her emails. So she was able to forward me the email, but if she hadn't, our league, because we were doing all the invites through our personal emails, we would not have had any record of that conversation. So that's just one example of like why communication needs to be going through a league account.
And there are leagues that can talk with you about that, but about ways to do that. Did you have a question? Hi, Laura.
Allie, do you have information about?
I do, yes. For those of you who don't know, I am very big on data privacy. Google is very terrible and will sell all of your information to third parties without any conscience at all. And there is a lot of studies that directly link lack of data privacy to democracy, which I would love to talk about. So please come find me afterward. But I highly recommend Proton Mail. Proton Mail there is a free version. I have now our candidate forums account going through Proton Mail. There's a few other options, but that's the one that I use and the one that I'm most familiar with.
So I'm gonna stop this discussion because we're in the weeds, but I want to say what this points to from our perspective at the state level is a need to have, and you'll see it, a communications affinity group and different training so that we can help you discover these tools, right? Because it's getting very complicated out there. So we know that. That's really what it's pointing to. The other thing, you should have all got your swag bags. That came directly from this. You're getting 250 constitutions and 250 Be a Voter stickers, and we will do that for you. The items may change, but we'll do that for you at every convention, we hope, in council going forward. There'll be a swag bag. You can take it back and use it for your members. So that is happening. And I hope you noticed think about in terms of help attending state and national conventions, I hope you noticed for this convention we had a special rate for new league members. And of course we asked there's some sponsorships, but we're working on that. And finally, we're going to be increasing the Ed Fund grants available to you. They were budgeted at $12,000 a year. We said for this biennium, we're able to put $6,000 more in. So we can move it from $24,000 to $30,000, and that will give you some more resources available to apply for Ed Fund grants. Oh, sorry. Well, no, right now the budget was $24,000 for 2 years. And it's going to $30,000. So we're adding $3,000 a year, another $6,000 in that fund that should give dollars to you to help. So that's the bulk purchases and financial support, and you're hearing that's immediate. That's immediate. Okay, I want to go on to technical tools and support. Some of this is really going to be a work in progress, but let me tell you where we are. Again, you asked for help with Canva and website management. We did the Canva training and brought that here to this convention, and we hope to be able to do more of just that kind of thing, hands-on training. You asked for candidate forum support and training, policies, best practices. We did a candidate forum training in May, and what we're working on and we really need an annual training calendar so we can be doing these things for you regularly. But we held that in May. Looking at member management systems and software, newsletter and communication software. A couple of things that we're doing. We actually just hired, she starts June 8th, a summer communications intern, and she's going to be working on creating kits and materials that we can send out to you so you don't have to do all of this yourself. And we really, again, this is one of those works in progress. We are going to be creating a communications affinity group to get your comms people together so we can do some training and make sure we're helping you build your skill levels. That's going to take longer to do, but we are working on that. The next one was structured trainings. And just in general, what we heard from you is, could we elevate training really as a key responsibility of the state league in a lot of areas? DEI, program planning, fundraising, partnership development. Could we specifically help all of you just changed your boards, right? Middle of the year. You got all new board members coming in. You asked and said, is there help that the state league can give on helping to train your new board members? How could we support member engagement and retention? And then we had a lot of interesting comments about, boy, we are in a rural area, and we've got some real challenges around communication across the divide. How can you help with that? So you've seen some immediate things, but the incoming board, we're really going to have an expanded training focus from the board itself. So we're looking at refreshing MELD and making sure that's giving you what you need as local leagues. We are looking at developing an annual training calendar, so you'll see what's coming around and you don't have to think about it. We can help you train with that. We did start a membership affinity group. If you are not a part of it, I really encourage you to go to those meetings. These are the folks that are talking about really the boots on the ground. How do I engage my new members? What are good policies and practices? Jean Crevier is not here, but she is part of that membership affinity group. Tomorrow after council, we're bringing in trainers to talk about skills for disagreeing better. We're going to give you some real language you can use and take back and let you practice. And we know that we're working very hard as we do, as we take positions on advocacy issues. We want to be sure we're giving you good talking points, good training and information that you can use as you table. The other thing I want to say about this, if you have not been tracking what National is doing, National has been doing some amazing trainings. So one of the things that the state's going to be asking is, what's National already doing that we can simply make sure you know about? Communication's the toughest thing. So that you can be partaking in these national trainings. They're doing some fabulous stuff. And I'm not sure all the leagues actually know about that. So I do want to let you know, we don't want to repeat what National is doing. I'll tell you as an example. They just did a great training on board member responsibilities. We know we can steal that directly. We can bring it to Washington State, and then we can use and customize it for us here in Washington. So we're going to use state, national resources and help bring them to you. So that's the training piece. This is going to unfold over the next year or so as the new board comes in. One of the things we want to be sure we're focusing on is what does our training capacity look like and how are we going to do that? Give us some time, but we know that's a focus. Okay, next one was effective and efficient communication. You really have challenged us to make sure that you know what we are doing and you can find those resources on the website. You asked us, you said you're getting a torrent of information. How can we help make that manageable? And can we explore some new opportunities for communication between local leagues and the state? Can we think about discussion forums? Are there other things we can do to get you talking with each other? So the answer is yes, yes, and yes, and some of it's going to take time. You may or may not have seen that we changed our newsletter schedule. We actually have tightened it up a little bit. You might not feel this way, but Deanne knows this. Our in-league newsletter is coming, that comes out just once a month. Our Evergreen Voter, which goes out to league and beyond, we're now doing every other month, which lets us build better stories, clear, I think it's more interesting communication. It's less insider baseball. We're saying we need to focus on folks outside the league, and I think they're doing a terrific job of that. You do have Resisting Threats to Democracy. That was coming out every week. It's now coming out twice a month. That lets us aggregate information for you. So we're trying not to spam you daily. So we are looking at our schedule and making sure it's manageable for us and hopefully a little more manageable for you. We're very aware of that. I mentioned that we've hired a summer intern. We're actually really excited about this. This is under communication as well, so we repeated it. We are actually looking at expanding communication staff hours to meet demand. I don't know if you know this, but okay, what's our staffing right now? We have 1.5 FTEs at the state level. So we have Amy who's full-time and we have Carolyn, and I hope you appreciate Carolyn who did the Canva training, yes? God, fabulous. We share her with Whatcom County, but we'll be talking about can we ramp her up and have a few more hours so she can be thinking about what you all need a little bit more. So we're looking at that. We are going to be exploring discussion forums and seeing does that work. We actually have some and nobody uses them. So we need to do better work on that long term, yes. You actually, if you don't know, National does have IO, and I'm assuming we can use, Amy's shaking her head. We don't have access to IO. You can jump onto National discussion forums, but we have to figure out at the state level what our discussion forums would look like. So give us time. You asked the question, it's going to take us time to do it. And again, a new communications affinity group is being formed so that your comms folks can all get together and learn from each other. Watch for that. Okay, number 5. If we overwhelmed you yet? Guidelines and resource libraries. So this is you saying to us, can't you please just create some sample policies so we don't have to start from scratch? So the board has said that yes, over the next year they're going to convene a working group. We think this is something that we can do and work on. Find best policies and just make sure you have a place you can go on the website that says, do you need a conflict of interest policy? Here's one. Steal this one. And we know you have them out there as well. So the board can work on this. It's going to give us some time, but we can do that. And then we'll update it as needed. So you have a repository of good, simple policies you can steal from. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I do want to repeat for the new folks. We made sure that we use the language of guidelines and not policy, because the state league cannot and should not be dictating to local leagues what your policies are. However, if you want to steal some of these guidelines word for word, if they work for your league, that's fine, but they are not something that you are legally required to follow.
Right, right. They're policies, and it's your board and your folks that have to make those decisions about what you want to use. Okay, and then number 6 was you challenged us. You said reevaluate some of the current league services, and you challenged us to look at the state we're in. I'm hoping everyone in this room knows that and you might not if you're new, I'm looking at some new folks, that the league produces a series of textbooks, civic education textbooks, 3rd through 5th grade and middle school, along with teacher guides and resources in multiple languages. It's quite extraordinary that we do this, and Beth can speak just so knowledgeably to this, but we are in multiple school districts across the state. It was really all done by an extraordinary team of volunteers. And we have looked at that and said, we're essentially running a school book creation business out of the League of Women Voters. I mean, we are. We're textbook producers. And this requires, at this point, more than just volunteers can manage. So what the State League said is we're going to hire a program manager for the state we're in, who will actually be working with all of you, those of you that have wonderful relationships with school districts. How are we doing that at a higher level? How are we talking with OSPI consistently? How are we updating those materials? We need a program manager to manage this. It's a business. It's tens of thousands of dollars. Karen Madsen can tell you our inventory and the value of it. It is very complicated, and it needs a manager. So we're going to hire a manager. It's as simple as that. Part-time to start. That's on the books. And then you asked us, many of you have been, I'll use the word frustrated with Vote 411 maybe, or questioned Vote 411. I want to tell you what we learned about it. We have been one of the few leagues in the nation that was using Vote 411 for every single election. I mean, every single local election. And what we have said at the state level is, let's make this a little more sustainable. So we are changing the focus of Vote 411 to state and federal only to see if we can do a better job of contacting candidates, and we're going to be needing help from all of you, of contacting candidates, getting them to participate, because if they're not participating, that is not a useful platform. If people go on Vote 411 and see that nobody has answered a question, they won't go back. So we need to focus more tightly and actually get people to answer. Yes, Joanne. Oh, wait for the microphone. Microphone to Joanne.
When you said the state and federal level, you mean the state legislators also?
Yes, absolutely. Any state office, state LD. So it's starting with this election, which is great. And at the moment, Amy has taken on that task of managing Vote 411 and questions. We're going to see what we can do with that. I'll tell you candidly, the other thing that's true, when we went from saying we're going to handle every single race to that, we actually saved about $4,000 for the state league. So my ask of all of you in this regard is to actually please be working at the local level once those questions are out and we tell you who has not responded. We really do need some help at the local level to support this, to reach out to candidates to say we really need you to participate. And I'll offer this as a thought for those of you doing candidate forums. One of the things you can, and I hope should be doing in your candidate forums, is all those candidates that you're talking to, at the same time be encouraging them to complete Vote 411 questions. And at the conclusion of your forum, you should always be sending people to Vote 411. We need to raise the profile of this and get more candidates answering questions. That's going to take all of us working on it. But we've tightened up the focus of that. We'll see. We're going to analyze it. Okay, next one is then additional staff expansion. I have to tell you, this is huge for the board to come to this decision. The board has been having discussions for decades about the capacity at the state league and the need for more staff. So the board has decided that we're going to move from an administrative director to an executive director, that we're going to hire a resource development manager, a fundraiser, part-time to start, and then to grow as we are able. You already heard me say we're going to add a state we're in program manager to actually manage that work. We're going to be contracting with what's called a professional employment organization. Don't know if you know what that is, but basically we have right now somebody manages our payroll. And they can step up to a next level of employment help for us. And so we're looking at that and saying, if we're going to be hiring more staff, we might need some additional support. So we're looking at that. And I really have to tell you, this is quite extraordinary, that the board has pledged multi-year gifts to support this expansion. You have an extraordinary board. And as they looked at this plan, they said, you know what, we believe in this. We've been talking about this for decades, about what we need to do. We as a board are willing to step up to help fund this. Some extremely generous gifts from your board of directors. You just need to know that. Because they believe in this, because they believe in our need to actually build resources. So the next slide I want to show you has got a whole lot of numbers, but this is really, it's so interesting. Amy, next slide. So this is some of the analysis that we did as we started looking at, for each one of these things, what's the cost going to be? I mean, we didn't do this in a vacuum. The board looked at cost and what does this mean in terms of new dollars, existing dollars, where's it going to come from? This was actually really interesting, and I'm showing you the whole thing, but this was fascinating. As we looked at those first things that I told you, directors and officers insurance, paying for Zoom licenses, building in swag dollars into the budget, and increasing the ed fund. Now, I want to tell you, every single one of those things is direct money back to you. That's direct money back to local leagues. When you add that up over the next 4 years, so let me go back to the original question, which was, what was the money in the budget that was unallocated, right? What was sitting in the budget that wasn't being used? $42,000. When you actually add this up, take out the ed fund grant money. When you add it up, you know what this adds up to? $42,000. And we didn't know that when we did it. Honestly, we weren't looking at that figure. But as we started building things out, then one of the board members said, would you just add that up? So what I'm telling you is those dollars are going directly back to local leagues in direct investment in your infrastructure. And we're going to support our own capacity building so that we can deliver more of what you need. So let me go to, and it's really interesting to look at those numbers. We were sort of flabbergasted. It worked out nicely. So next steps, I want to remind you that local leagues, you can request reimbursements now for your directors and officers insurance. That's available now. You can contact Amy to set up your Zoom account if you haven't done it. And Canva. Yep. I should put Canva in there. And the board has built an implementation team that is now asking the question, all right, if we're going to hire staff, how are we going to do that? What's the process? What's the timeline? How's that going to happen? And we're starting with the question of the executive director. So I just want to let you know, and work is unfolding, and we're working on that at the board level. That's the next level of work. So I'm going to end by going back to those strategic priorities, which was sort of where we started. Next slide. It's interesting. So as you look at all of this, here's what's fascinating to me. So the board sat down a year ago and just in general said, what do we need? And then we asked local leagues, what do you need? And when you go back to this original piece, I would suggest to you that it's all in those priorities. They all fit beautifully into this list of priorities. So it feels to me like collectively we're operating in sync. You know, the board said we need to build capacity, and we need to find the resources to do that. And we need to focus on leadership development, and we need to work on communications, and we need to increase our outreach. All of these things fit in here. And by the way, that last piece in increasing outreach and engagement, the coalition conversation you had today was really part of that, responding to that, saying, what do you need in terms of skill building to make sure you can do better outreach? You had the advocacy team talking about what they're doing and how you can join that work. So we're trying to give you the skills you need going forward to make these things happen. So your board has been pretty darn busy. And the new board comes in. Tomorrow we'll elect the rest, our new board. And then that new board is going to sit down on July 11th and have a board retreat. And we're going to look at all of this again. And we're going to say, where are we? How do we go forward? What's next? How do we measure, right? I mean, are we delivering? What's the next steps? So that's been the journey really over this last year of where we are. So now I just want to open it up to you. That's the story we wanted to tell. But I'd love to hear from you. Are you satisfied? What do you think about all of this work?
Hi, this is Janet from Seeking. And thanks so much for this work. It's quite an amazing amount of work that has happened in the last year. Can you say more about the decision of going from administrative director to executive director? How will that change things and change the board's work?
Thank you for that question, because that is a huge question for us. Because what we know as we develop, in fact, looking at the job description, what we know is there will need to be deep collaboration between the executive director and the board. We will never not be a working board. We won't. But things will shift. I will tell you that National has just finished doing a series of webinars that we were on that talked about adding staff and doing just this kind of change. And the reality is you have to resettle who does what. And you just have to know the leagues that we've talked to that are doing this, who we're talking, said, you know what, you're starting a journey. And you probably got a 4 to 5 year journey while you figure out what changes in that process. And so you just have to have your eyes wide open about how that will work. So I can't answer that question now. I can tell you it's very much on our mind. That actually is going to be a conversation at our retreat, is what might this mean and how do we think about that, prepare for that, be very aware of that. But the job descriptions we're preparing really do talk about a collaborative responsibility, that collectively you're doing this work. Because the board are still going to have portfolios, they're going to have things they're responsible for, but the executive director is going to hire staff, right? Those 2 staff positions, those are hired by the executive director with board collaboration and input. So yeah, we got to figure that out. Eyes wide open on that one. What else?
Joanne Lasowski.
Joanne Lasowski.
Tacoma, Pierce County.
Yes.
I belong to a couple of ad hoc statewide committees, and they kind of act independently in this little circle around. They're not really local leagues, but they have this independence in some ways. I'm wondering, are those committees going to have access to things like Canva and Zoom accounts and things like that?
That's a great question. I don't know. Can you give me an example of which committee you're thinking of?
Local News Committee,
Sure.
and the Student Video Contest.
Well, if you think about, I will tell you my off-the-cuff response is that you actually already do, because as a statewide committee, you do have access to staff in that regard. So I think it's probably still going to continue to be, but
Don't have our own Zoom account.
so that's an interesting thing to think about. But you're using the state league to schedule your account, so you already are using our Zoom account.
It might make it easier if we don't have to schedule through Amy every time that we wanted to have a meeting.
We schedule through Deanne. Deanne is saying you schedule through her.
Right. But the student video contest, has,
Well, I think it's a fair question. Our budgeting was around local leagues. In terms of Zoom, it was for local leagues. So I would say, access, if you've got local league folks that are on there, can you use that account to schedule? So we did not think about that. That's something but thank you. That's a fair question. Yes, Jean. Jean. Here comes the mic.
This is following on from what Joanne said. For those of us who have statewide projects, is there a possibility of having a temporary Zoom account until the project is done so we don't have to keep going to Carolyn and Amy? Because especially if you need a 24-hour turnaround because somebody's schedule changed.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. I'm looking at Amy at the moment.
I mean, I hear what you're saying because it would make my life and Carolyn's life easier if we didn't have to spend so much time, but I don't think that's going to be plausible just because the number of committees that would like that would be a lot. And, while we are getting 50% off the Zoom licenses, they're not cheap.
No, it's not. So we had budgeted for.
And more importantly, when I set this up, sorry. I can, let me unwedge myself. So I just set us up on this new version of Zoom, this new level of Zoom account, because before we were limited to 9 licenses. And now we, in theory, can go up to 250 if we pay for each one.
If we pay for them.
But what was super irritating, and I'm not 100% sure is true, but the woman I spoke to was very adamant that it was true, is that the number I sign up for at the start of the contract year is the number we have for that contract year. So we just bought enough for each local league to have 1 and for the state to have 2. And so we can't give any to any statewide committees right now. If it turns out that that is really something that we need, maybe next year when we re-up our Zoom account, we will have that opportunity.
And I would say, let us hire a resource development manager to see if we can raise money so that we're able to do these kinds of things, right? Give us some time. Brenda, and we'll come here. Brenda.
Amy, what's the number of people who can participate on those Zoom licenses? Is there a limit of 100 like before?
Nope, it is now 300.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks.
Dun, dun, dun. Up here. Wait, microphone. Wait for the mic, There you go. The Zoomers have to hear.
Okay. Glenda Hammond, Tacoma Pierce County. I know someone that's been working with Zoom accounts, and it's unlimited people that can use it, so you never have to check in. And the cost from regular Zoom is significantly low. I'll bring you the information.
So yeah, well, as I say, Amy is working with folks, so we did up our license. So when we're getting a 50% discount off of the cost. Yeah. Well, remember. Well, anyway, talk with Amy. Give anything you know that we don't know. We'd love to know it. That would be great. Janet.
Janet Leonard again from Seattle, King County. Question about web page and other digital platforms. I know you all have talked about this and thought about it, and well, Lisa's nodding her head. And I'm not familiar with what are the standards, if they exist, for web pages. Has there been an effort to develop any kind of continuity in design, user interface? And then another question, if a league decided to take off on their own and do a completely new web page, how does that sit? What kind of...
That I will tell you, we have not addressed the website issue. But Valley has some thoughts on that. We know this is work we need to do. I want to be sure I understand the question. that you're talking about continuity across all leagues, say in Washington State, so that when you look at a website, you can tell it's a league website. It kind of looks the same and all that. We have not addressed that. I think it's a great question. I think, and I'm looking to maybe the comms group and some of our technical folks to say, how do we get our arms around that? I do think it's really important. Yeah. What does that look like?
A league is able to do that if that's your question. I don't know in terms of financial support coming from the state because they haven't looked at that. But I will say in terms of continuity or, well, you were asking for, I don't know how you worded it, but like standards. So our league just redid our communications policy. And when we did that, the members of that ad hoc committee looked at not only the resources from Washington State, but also from national. And national has a lot of really good resources that we do need to be thinking about especially in terms of accessibility. So websites have to be set up in a certain way so that they are accessible for folks who have low vision, color contrasting, all of that. And the National League does have some resources on that. And I could probably coordinate with Amy or something because I do not find it easy to find things on the national website. So if other people have any tips, let me know, but I can probably try to coordinate with Amy to get that information out to everyone.
Yeah, it's crazy. So work to be done. I mean, we absolutely recognize that. Couldn't do it all right now. Yes.
We have someone.
Oh, Zoom. Oh, thank you. Zoom question. Yes. Hi, Zoom. Hi, Judy.
Hi there. Hello. I really have enjoyed this conversation. I'm quite proud of the board for all the work it has done this past year. Very well done. Has it been shared with the local presidents yet, separate from this council?
Not to this level of detail. This
And-
is sort of our rollout.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
They've been told we've been working on it and reporting on it. So we got to the point where now we could tell you where we are. Yeah, we really had to get board support first.
I have two more comments. The Zoom account. I do a lot of Zoom things in different ways. I use our local leagues. It's so much easier, and I'm also the administrator for our local league. So if you have people on your committee, try using your local league. That's a good way to use the resources we have when you're on a statewide committee. Okay, my other comment is about web pages.
Yeah.
We've changed I'm the webmaster also. I have a few hats. I have gone through 3 different platforms for web pages. There are standards to use. Now using Milo, it's out of California, League of Women Voters of California. They have biweekly group meetings that you can ask questions, so forth, administrator to help you. We've had lots of comments nationally about different web pages and the standards and programs that are geared for organizations. That would be a good source for people to ask questions and get answers. The National IO for Communications. And of course, it's not easy. I would love to have somebody take over this job as the webmaster. It's just like been impossible. So
yeah, so I think I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding in the room about saying how difficult it is to make sure you got a webmaster who's really competent in your local leagues.
Well, I'm not competent.
Yes, you are, Judy.
I've only been doing it for 10 years and I'm not competent.
Yeah. I mean, we recognize this as an issue. I think the technology piece. So we have work to do in that regard.
Yeah.
And part of me again.
Anyway, thanks.
Part of moving again to a different structure with a different staff so that, we've got more people at the state level who can help with some of these kinds of things. I mean, give us some time. You're looking at the beginning of a journey that's going to be a multi-year journey, I think. By the way, Robin, I see that you are on, and I probably should have offered if there was anything that you want. Robin was also on the ad hoc task force, working with Valley and Bartentio and us. Robin, did you want to make any comments? I apologize for not giving you that opportunity.
Now you put me on the spot, and
I know, I'm sorry, I didn't tell
don't
you
really have
that.
anything to say particularly. But I do have to commend you, Karen, in particular, for I feel like you've taken this baton and carried it forward and in a really strong way, and I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. But it was the board. I mean, you have to realize the board had to have the courage to say yes. I'm telling you. Because we've been asking this question for a long time, and this board said, yeah, now is the if not now, when are we going to do this, right? If not in this time, in this moment, when are we going to do it? Pretty amazing stuff at the board level. Valley, do you have something to add?
So going back to the website, I do, as one of the youngest members, probably in the Washington State League, all of you folks who are older than me and did not grow up with computers, please give yourself so much grace, because I was using computers in high school and it is learning another language. So I know a lot of people are frustrated, and I understand that. I also get frustrated, but all of you folks who are trying, even though you are practically using another language, be patient with yourself and be proud of yourself, because that is huge.
And it is changing every day, right? Every day. Crazy. That's what we wanted to present. Are there any other comments, thoughts, questions? There's a lot more to unfold. You can hear this. We're starting a journey, right? With a lot of change that's going to come on.
I do have one last comment, because I do have to get the last word. I will say my experience in being on this task force, this was the first task force I was on a state level. And there's something about, I mean, not that I don't love the work that I do on local level, but there's something about working with the state that really made me feel like I was in a very democratic place, because I was collaborating with people from across the state, and we were bringing all of our experiences from across the state, and it was just such a joy and a pleasure to work with all of these amazing ladies and to work. We didn't work as much with the board. We did present to them, but like, this is what grassroots is. This is like the local leagues coming together, and we told the state board that this is what we wanted, and this is what democracy is. When the state board, I mean, I don't have any problems with the state board right now, but if the state board is not listening to us, and if national isn't listening to us, it is our responsibilities as paying members of this organization to speak up and say, hey, you need to change this. And that's what we did last year, and this board has stepped up in an incredible way. So kudos to all of you state board members.
All right, thank you. Well, so thank a state board member when you see them, because they have done pretty extraordinary work in all of this. Okay, it is now, we're going to let you go a few minutes early. So we are now on break.